Hello and welcome to Double the Cup. We are here in Brisbane. I'm Pokuah Frimpong and lucky enough to be joined by Tom Smithies today. We will also be joined by Pellizzeri and head coach of Melbourne Victory women's team, Jeff Hopkins. But before that, Smithies, today we were at the Matildas training session, the first one since their big win against Canada. Can you just take us through what you saw there?
All very relaxed, incredibly relaxed, everyone in a good mood. Goodness me, the difference a win makes. Doing mix-zone or interviews, we should say, with the players before the Canada game, in the aftermath of the loss to Nigeria, there was a brittleness, a defensiveness. They were not happy with themselves, the way they played. They weren't happy with some of the questions. Suddenly, the win has made all the difference in the world. Everyone really relaxed. Talking to Claire Polkinghorne and talking to Mackenzie Arnold, both cracking jokes, both really relaxed and just talking now about, how far they want to go in the tournament, the form, all that kind of thing. So everyone in a pretty good mood. Very little discussion. That's the other difference a win makes. Very little discussion of Sam Kerr's calf.
Yeah, and I guess that win gave them 7 days off, and obviously it's 4 days till the game against Denmark. But it was really positive, that mood, and I think it was certainly uplifted when we got there and the girls started training and we heard, Man, I Feel Like a Woman by Shania Twain. I don't know if it was, obviously Shania Twain is from Canada, so was it a dig or not a dig? If it was, I love it. I love it all the more.
I think, as always with World Cups, it's possible to overthink things. Mackenzie Arnold was asked about it and looked a little bit nonplussed. I think it was just, as she said, from their point of view, it was just a banger of a tune.
No, it really is a banger of a tune. No, Shania Twain is a phenomenal artist, and you can't really go wrong with that. There was the second song choice. I don't know if it was just as good, but Shania Twain was mentioned and that was pretty good. But so another big thing about that press conference we heard was about Mackenzie Arnold. She's had that had the hearing implant just recently, got that, and she's spoken about how it's changed a lot for her in her life, and she spoke notably about the lead up into the Nigeria game and how she did things a little bit differently. Can you just take us through that?
Yeah, she still doesn't wear the hearing aid in games or in training. I think she said it would be too much of a distraction because she finds herself playing with it and stuff. But she didn't wear it on the day. She forgot. In the same way, she'd forgot to put it on before the press conference. So it hasn't yet got into the routine that if you contact lenses or anything like that, it takes a while to build that routine. And she was just wondering with maybe the routine on game day was slightly disrupted by the fact she wasn't wearing it, and whether that had a difference or not, because she did make a mistake. There's no doubt about that. But she also talked about the faith that Tony Gustafsson has shown in her. And for a player who is so big on confidence, who needs to feel that she's secure in the team because she's not felt secure in the past, that's a huge thing. And I think footballers are creatures of habit and routine. They like to know and to do the same things all the time. And whenever they win, they want to know what the things they did in advance were. So Mackenzie was talking about that. And I think it'll get to the point where she wears that hearing aid in games and things like that. But at the moment, it's more about creating a match day routine.
No, it really is. And we've seen her growth in this team. We've seen so many other players under Tony Gustafsson who've got significantly better between the likes of Kyra Cooney-Cross and Mackenzie Arnold. She's secured that spot. It's not really a debate anymore about who is the first choice goalkeeper for this squad. So it's really nice to see that having improved and steadied that ship. But heading into that Denmark game, obviously, a lot of expectations because it is a round of 16, but the Matildas probably should walk into that tournament feeling pretty confident, having recently beaten Denmark. And do you look at when you look ahead to that game, do you feel the Matildas should feel as favourites for that?
I think the Matildas shouldn't think of themselves as favourites for the simple reason that they play so much better when everything's on the line and it's backs to the wall and they're under pressure. And many people didn't expect them to get a win out of the game against Canada, let alone a 4-0 thumping. The danger is that the expectations will be driven up now to the point where there's an assumption that they're going to beat Denmark, and that doesn't necessarily play into the way that the mentality that best suits them at the Matildas. So I think they, in a sense, will be trying to recreate that everything's on the line, we've got everything to prove mentality, because that's what serves them best.
No, it really doesn't. Hopefully they do get that win against Denmark, and this tournament keeps on going for them. But other teams that they're obviously into the round of 16 now, Jamaica and Brazil, obviously one of the big, probably a favourite heading into this tournament. Brazil getting knocked out of this tournament by Jamaica after not being able to get the 3 points, and now they obviously joined France in the group as well, getting that 6-3 win against Panama. What did you make of those games last night?
Again, another extraordinary night of drama brought to you by the Women's World Cup. It's just phenomenal. As I got to half-time and I'm thinking, well, Jamaica have done a pretty good job here at keeping Brazil goalless, but surely they can't do it for another 45 minutes. But lo and behold, they could. And Jamaica go through with 1 goal. That's just the most incredible statistic. 1 goal in 3 games and they're in the next round. Brazil, who looked so good in that opening game against Panama, are going home. Poor Marta just broken by it. And there's so many tears. A team who everyone had expected to, not just to go deep into the tournament, but play some amazing football. And they talked before the tournament about the Brazilian style they wanted to bring. Well, all they've got is a Brazilian going home ticket.
No, and you mentioned Marta and obviously her legacy in women's football. It's unmatched, obviously. She spoke about heading into, when she came into women's football, there wasn't female idols. And also Claire Polkinghorne was asked about that at the press conference, spoke about having played against Marta and also talking about her own legacy as well. She said that she doesn't really think about it, but it's hard to look past hard to ignore a player like Claire Polkinghorne, who's done so much for the game and has been part of this Matildas setup for so long.
Yeah, those stories are inspirational and they're so vitally important now, because when I was growing up, I had so many role models and heroes because it was men's football. All around the world, there was men's football for me to see. So it was second nature, and it's really quite eye-opening to hear people talk. Like we did an interview with the author Fiona Crawford yesterday and talking about there wasn't women's football visible for her to get into when she was growing up. And that's the case for so many of even the current Matildas. You know, that some of them were here had shirts with men's names on the back because they were the only people, the heroes that they could see. So what this tournament has done is brought to the world and to Australian eyes the quality of football has been phenomenal. But it's just created heroes and visibility, and that it's the phrase that's been used time and time again, that there are girls watching this, seeing fantastic women playing football and thinking, I too can be that.
No, and for me, I'm like similar age to a decent amount of players in that Matilda squad, and this generation of players that have done so much for me personally, have just been able to see them play games. And I think a lot of times when I used to talk to people about football, I'd go, oh, you know, they're pretty good for women. I think I'd get stuck in that mentality. But now I'm like, these are just fantastic footballers. And we've seen that with the goals we've seen throughout this tournament. And we've seen that with the likes of Lauren James scoring some fabulous goals and goals that are just incredible for just football. You don't need anything else about it. But what else have you made about this tournament so far in terms of the games that we saw yesterday?
Well, women VARs can be just as bad as men VARs. That's one thing. The thing that's most excited me is the way that Australia has embraced the World Cup, and this is what happens when you have a big sporting event that comes to a country and the country really gets into it. That there's water cooler talk about it. The papers are full of it. It's online everywhere. The TV, the news bulletins are showing it. But most importantly, people are going. You know, when we look at World Cups on the TV and you see those full stadiums and you think, well, that's a great atmosphere, I'd love to be part of that. Well, here people are part of it, and people get 47,000 going to see France against Panama in midweek, a game that was everyone thought was going to be really one-sided. And in fact, it turned into a brilliant atmosphere. They all turned into brilliant atmospheres. It is so wonderful, and people who've never been exposed to a World Cup before are now getting exposed to the Women's World Cup and thinking, my God, I want some more of this.
Yeah, and it started off with the games earlier as well, because we saw Sweden beat Argentina 2-0, and now obviously they go up to Melbourne Rectangular Stadium and they're going to face the United States. So a real heavyweight clash there. And then we obviously had the big, I think it's an upset, but for me it's not an upset because I've seen the growth of South African football and how much they've invested in it. South Africa getting that late winner against Italy and securing their spot into the round of 16 against the Netherlands. What have you seen from those two sides and their performances?
I think that the narrowing of the gap and the absolute refusal to accept reputation and accept that a game should be over before it's begun. There are teams who have attacked. There's been not a huge amount of parking of the bus, to use the old cliche. There's been teams who've attacked, and when they've gone behind, they've just responded in kind. Even Panama refusing to give up against France. And some epic heavyweight clashes as well. The France against Brazil, for instance, was one of the most enthralling games I've ever seen. But there are clashes that you don't expect to turn into these incredible fixtures, and the gap has been narrowed to the degree, and the attitude and the positivity and the determination of teams is such that they turn into enthralling contests.
No, and I was going to say, in terms of that South African team, obviously that game against Italy became very chaotic in the end, and But I think South Africa's shown something throughout this tournament, have shown their capability of going forward and causing teams a lot of trouble, particularly that Argentina game. I think they're quite unlucky for it to end up being in a 2-2 draw, but obviously defence is a part of football, and I think it's something they need to get better at if they are going to try and really challenge the Dutch, because the Dutch certainly laid down a marker when they absolutely got that massive win in the final group game as well. So it's going to be interesting to see how the rest of these teams who have made it to that next level, if they are able to continue the party going and get another upset win.
And that's the key thing, is that they've created expectations for themselves now. So Jamaica suddenly think, oh gosh, we can do something here. And you've got the danger of them looking down, going along that tightrope. They had nothing to lose going into the group stage. And suddenly there's a feeling we're in a 90-minute contest, potentially 120 minutes. It's a two-horse race, anything can happen. And suddenly you think, oh, if we got this, then we could be in the quarterfinals. And suddenly we're in the semi-finals and you can get ahead of yourself. Whereas before, I think it was the thing of, let's just deal with the group stage. And that is the only danger. I hope that all of the teams continue to play with that freedom, because it's been exhilarating to watch.
Certainly has. And Smithies, thank you for joining me. And now we'll head over to Melbourne, where Teo Pellizzeri and Jeff Hopkins are just going to chat a little bit about football and about the Women's World Cup so far.
Thank you, Pokuah and the Brisbane crew. Dub at the Cup continues in Melbourne now. Teo Pellizzeri, joined by Melbourne Victory head coach Jeff Hopkins. Jeff, great to see you. You're excited about the World Cup, I know, and you've been out to quite a few games. Tell us, what have you seen, where have you been, and how much are you enjoying it at the moment?
I am absolutely loving it. The games that I haven't been out to watch, I've been sat in the house watching avidly, and it's been amazing. Look, the buzz around Melbourne, around the country, has been just so good to see, and everything's based around football now, and women's football. I've been to a couple of the Matildas games. I saw the game up in Brisbane, the Nigeria game. All the disappointments that went with that, and then I was at the next game and the highs of the 4-0 win, and the amazing support and the amazing atmosphere at the ground as well. So, in terms of the football, it has maybe surprised me a little bit, the quality that I've seen, and the depth of the quality as well. I think the top teams, the difference between the top and the bottom, or the lesser ranked teams, is definitely really shrunk. The physicality, the athleticism is one thing that has really got my attention. And say the tactical side of things has got closer, and teams are able to carry out their game plans much better than they have done in the past. Especially, the stronger teams and the weaker teams. But I think the strength and the athleticism of all the teams now means that they can go for 90 minutes. They can sprint for 90 minutes. They can play at a high intensity for 90 minutes. And it's great to see the so-called stronger nations not having it all their own way.
So, coach's hat on, when you say you've been impressed by the quality, you've mentioned some of those qualities, but what do you make of a team like, say, Jamaica, that's been able to keep a clean sheet against both France and Brazil? Are there deficiencies in those two teams that were attacking them that struggled to break Jamaica down, or do you think that this is the commitment, the stamina, and also the organisation of a Jamaica team, that they're able to do that to a couple of the world's top teams?
Yeah, look, I definitely think you've got to give the credit to the teams that have actually gone out there and put their plans into action. I think Jamaica have only scored one goal, but they haven't conceded a goal. So they've set out their plan to be very, very hard to beat. And I guess now how far they can go into the competition playing that way in one-off games is maybe a little bit debatable. When they have to actually go and try and win games, it's going to be a little bit different. But look, I think now as the competition goes on, the teams that will progress are the real smart teams that will have a plan to break down a real tight mid-third block or a deep block, and have the players, the individual players, and the nous to how to break those down.
When we talk Matildas, you've coached so many of the current squad at different points of their careers and coached against everyone in that squad if you hadn't already coached them with teams that you were in charge of. When you watch a player like Katrina Gorry play, or when you watch players out there playing for the Matildas, do you notice traits and characteristics in their game that you watched develop, or do you remember things you shouted at them, don't do this or do that, and they are still doing it 8, 10, 12 years on in their careers from their developmental phase?
Probably not. What I do notice is how well they are doing things, though. A real good example of that is probably Kyra Cooney-Cross. I think she's been absolutely amazing in the 3 games that I've seen her. And I guess what I've seen from her is the consistency of performance, that maybe she did a lot of these things for us when she was a younger player, but could she do them for 90 minutes? Probably not, but it just amazes me at how she's like a 100-game veteran, and it really excites me to see where she's going to go to, because she's been one of the players across the whole of the competition that I've really been so impressed with. And the sky's the limit for her.
When you were coaching early years of W League, the sky being the limit was maybe if the United States could keep a professional league going. Yeah. Now it's Ian Wright and also the TIFO football guys, so both the mainstream media and what I like to call the football nerd media, going crazy about you and saying this is a player that's headed for the WSL in a big transfer. So as far as raising the ceiling of what a player's potential and career could be, how exciting is that for you, given that you were right there at ground zero when the W League started?
Look, it's crazy now, and it's the way it should be. These players have earned what they're going to be given. It's not, I say given. They've actually gone out and earned it with hard work, with performances at club level, on the training field, and at an international level as well. So, yeah, look. The game is in a really good position at the moment. Hopefully, we talk about legacy. This country will jump on the bandwagon, and everyone within the game here has a bit of an obligation to help move the game on. But yeah, worldwide, the game is in a great place. And there's for me, I've got a 3-year-old granddaughter, and she's already got she's hedging her bets with an England kit and a Matildas kit at the moment. So, yeah, look, why not? I think it's going to be, it can be such an exciting time now, moving forward from here.
There's always nuances and difference between international needs and a club's needs. What do you think when you see Courtney Vine playing as an inverted winger, or Alex Chidiac only ever used as a winger and used sparingly? I mean, I even quizzed Tony Gustafsson in his press conference about this, and he slapped me back saying, "Why did I know you were going to ask about Alex Chidiac?" which I found hilarious. But the way the Matildas are deploying their team, we're always swayed by the results, and if we win, it's okay, and if we don't, it's a disaster. But with the coach's hat on, what have you made of the way the Matildas have been deployed so far in this tournament?
Cool, that's a bit political, that.
You did.
No, look, I think when you look at that second game against Nigeria, Tony was questioned about his interventions, the timing of them, and who he brought on. And at that level, questions will be asked. I guess you can, after listening to him, you can see what he was trying to do, and when he did it, what he did have a plan. Whether it was the right plan or not, that's kind of neither here or there. He made a decision as the coach to deploy those players at those times. Obviously, as a massive fan of Chids, I love her, and I think she could have been brought on a little bit earlier. But I think you've got to give Tony credit as well, though. He took things on the chin after that performance, and he put out then the right team, played the right way, and got the team up to play in an absolutely unbelievable performance to win that game against Canada, who are a very, very good side. So I think he needs to, everyone's ready to sort of knock him back for that. I think everyone needs to say, hey, well done, you did a really good job there, and maybe by taking the pressure off the team and taking the brunt of the flack that they got for losing the game. It took a little bit of pressure maybe off the team and maybe off Sam, because the pressure on her must have been amazing as well.
Well, let's throw forward to the Denmark game, because you do have a special insight into a player that's been leading the line for Denmark in this tournament, Rikke Madsen. How did she get on your radar to sign her for Melbourne Victory? Did she initiate contact, or was she actually a player that you or the club had targeted to try and sign?
Yeah, look, we had a profile of player that we were looking for, a striker with pace that could play. We were hoping that could play in a wide area or a central area, and we had a number of players that we looked at. Spent a lot of time, a lot of late nights up watching Y-Scout and watching players, and she was one that really caught the eye, and I thought could do a really good job for us. And she came over and she did. She was the other thing, when I spoke to her agent was so positive about her as a person. She said, "You'll just, if you take a chance on her, you'll absolutely love her and what she brings." And she was 100% right. Rikke was, she fitted in really well with the team. In terms of, I think she got into some great goal scoring positions when she was with us. Never really, I think she only scored one goal.
The one against Sydney FC.
Yeah,
but I mean, I think of the game against Wanderers, where I think she either hit the post or put one wide.
Yeah.
You're right, she was getting into the goal scoring positions, but just didn't have the finishing touch.
And I think if she would have maybe been here a little bit longer, or maybe one of those early goals would have gone in, that would have kind of lit the touch paper, and she would have really taken off there. So, but yeah, look, I think she's a danger. She's got pace. She can play direct. She can come short. She presses and she works really hard. So yeah, she's a player that we really need to look out for.
As far as the questions that you wanted her to ask of your opponents, what questions will she be asking of the Matildas? What makes her a danger to the Matildas?
Yeah, look, I think for her, I think the biggest danger is her pace. Is that if we get into poor defensive positions against her, she will have the ability to either with the ball at her feet to go past our back four, or to get in behind them. So it's something we gotta really watch. But again, on the flip side of that, I thought our back four and our goalkeeper were excellent the other night. So assured, and with Kyra and Amini in front, they really protected the two central defenders against Canada, and just kind of allowed the centre backs just to think about the balls coming into the box and going in behind, which again was quite easy for Alana and Claire to pick up.
Just as an aside, did she have any qualms or apprehensions, Madsen, about coming to the A-League, about how it might affect World Cup prospects? Because you signed Sarah Rowe, who was, I think, a bit of a free throw at the stumps to trying to get into that Ireland team, and plenty of players, know that Australia's a televised league. You can get your highlights and your name out there pretty broadly if you come here. And given her output when she was here, was the World Cup front of mind for her, or was she the sort of professional that made victory front of mind when she was playing for you?
Look, I think we knew she was not quite established. She'd played quite a few games for Denmark, but she wasn't really established as a starting player there. She came to play and to help establish her, and then obviously then she had a contract with going over to the States into the NWSL as well. So she knew that was coming up, and yeah. So look, while she was here, she was 100% committed to us, but I'm sure that she had one eye on playing well for us scoring goals, going over to the US, and then with the experience she got here and maybe lifted a profile over in the US, that would get her into the team and a starting position, which I don't think she did in the first. I think she came on off the bench in the first game, but I think she started the other 2 games since then.
And as far as, a lot of the focus is going to be on Australia. They're going to have about 98% of the stadium. Are your feelings that Australia starts an overwhelming favourite to beat Denmark? Or, again, coach's hat on, are you concerned about maybe overconfidence or even just the idea of a bit of an up and down parabola for the Matildas in this tournament that means this is actually the one where they've got to hunker down and focus and make sure there's no emotional or physical letdown after the amazing high of the Canada game?
Yeah, look, no, I don't think there's going to be any chance that we underestimate them. As a team, they're full of players that are playing in the top leagues in the world, in the WSL, NWSL, the French league, the Italian league. So they're full of good individual players, and for us, I think maybe the little hiccup we had against Nigeria in the bigger picture we might look back on that and think that was a bit of a godsend for us, that it made us look at ourselves and question ourselves, and in the group stage that was probably a good thing that doesn't happen in a knockout game. And I think the girls are going to be just, I think, buoyed and really motivated by the game that we played in Melbourne, and the fact that they know now everyone's so behind them.
So a couple of quick hits on some of the other contenders to finish. Spain beaten by Japan 4-0. Can they right the ship and make themselves a contender again, or is the way they defended in that game maybe indicative of greater problems?
Yeah, look, I've always had maybe that question mark on Spain. They're a super technical side, tactically very, very good, but maybe a few young bodies in the team, and maybe the defensive side of things might stop them from pushing on too much further into the competition. But also, I think tactically they are very, very clever, so they will definitely learn from the last game, and they'll be better in the next game.
Japan, real deal or flying under the radar? Can they actually win the World Cup?
I think they can, yeah. They're full of, again, technically very, very good players, a good coach, a very flexible game plan as well. I think they can set themselves up to play and go and really attack and beat teams, but they can also, they showed the other night, they can sit off a little bit and they can attack very, very quickly. So, yeah, look, I think they're real contenders.
USA versus Sweden right here in Melbourne. Is it a failure for the team knocked out in this game? The winner will remain a contender. It'll either be the USA getting on track or Sweden staying on track. Have you got an inkling either way as to who gets through?
Yeah, look, it's a shame that has to come so early in the competition, but I'd say just be very, very wary of a wounded USA team. I think they'll come out. They've taken a bit of criticism back home and in the press here. So, yeah, look, they're full of experience. They've got good young players. They're strong, tough physically. I think they'll come out and have a real good go. But I think Sweden won't take any backward steps either. So it's going to be a great game, and I'm going to be there as well.
And last one, England. Obviously on Australia's side of the draw, so Australia can't play England in the final if they're both progressing. No. But how impressed have you been by them? Slow start, exploding to life with the win against China.
Yes.
What's their ceiling? Again, winners, potential winners?
Definitely potential winners. I think, again, although they won all 3 of their games, I think, again, they had to have a little bit of a look at themselves. The way that they won the first couple of games wasn't particularly impressive, and again, they've had a little bit of a knock in the press, and so again, came out and played a little bit different against China with 3 at the back, and looked so impressive, and the way that they dominated the game right from the first minute of the game, and they took it on. And yeah, look, maybe Lauren James is just amazing, and again, she can be that player that comes out of the pack. You know, didn't play in the Euros really that much last year, and most probably has benefited from injuries that they've had leading into the competition. But cool, again, she's most probably the standout player for me in the competition so far.
Well, watch this space to see if that form can keep up. Now, we have run a little longer than I promised, so guess what? You're off the hook for me grilling you about Melbourne Victory's off-season and transfer stories. I'm sure you'll be thrilled about that.
That's why I talk so long.
We will put a pin in it and get to it a little bit closer to the Liberty A-League season. And, of course, you can get yourself the Liberty A-League Pass. Make sure you go to the A-League's website, go to keepup.com.au. Liberty A-League Pass, you can get into the games if you sign up for that pass. Make sure you do it. You can go and see Jeff Hopkins, Melbourne Victory, and, of course, your team in your city as well. You're listening to or watching Dub at the Cup. Let's throw it back to the Brisbane crew and Pokuah Frimpong.
Thanks for that, Tayo. And that's been Dub of the Cup tonight, and you can catch all the latest news about the Women's World Cup on keepup.com.au, and you can catch Dub of the Cup, the podcast, on Spotify and Apple Podcasts and anywhere else you listen. But I've been Pokuah Frimpong, you've been Tom Smithies, and thank you for joining us.